My name is Nathan Bergeron. I work under two different licenses as a marriage and family therapist and as an acupuncturist. So I can definitely do an approach that incorporates body and mind, which is my passion. People look for therapists often in periods of crisis or in periods of high turmoil. And it's definitely difficult to find a therapist. Okay. Finding a therapist is often a delicate endeavor. We either go with referrals, it's difficult to know who's the right therapist for us. And some of the guidelines I think that can be helpful is to know, can I trust this person with what's most troubling to me? Do I feel safe? It's really important to feel safe, and at the same time to feel that the therapist can really help us integrate new skills or integrate parts of us that may be scary. So that might be something to look into when one is looking for a therapist that can help with the challenges that someone may be facing. Choosing a therapist can be quite a challenging endeavor in the sense that we don't necessarily know who's the right person for us. So word of mouth is definitely one way to go, but what's most important is how do you feel, what's your experience with that therapist? Do you feel safe? Do you have a sense that you could share with this person what's most troubling to you, the trauma, the shame, the confusion you may be experiencing? And the connection you have with the therapist is really important because it's really in the alliance that you can integrate new skills and integrate new ways of thinking about your challenges. Trauma can be seen as what we think of as PTSD, the big T trauma, but small t trauma can accumulate and lead someone to be out of their ability to adapt. One of the things we keep in mind in working with trauma is the ability to be resilient. When one loses one's ability to be resilient with what comes at, that's too many words. Small t traumas can be quite challenging because it's easy to dismiss, oh, just that little thing happened to me, I shouldn't make a big deal of it, but accumulation of small t traumas can lead someone to lose his ability or her ability to adapt and to be resilient. And that's really the challenge with trauma, because once we lose our ability to be resilient, we either get stuck on high, which leads us to experiences of being, let's stop. When we lose our ability to be resilient, we either get stuck on high or stuck on low. Stuck on high can lead us to some experiences of being hyper-vigilant, hyperactive, a bit manic. Stuck on low could lead us to be like depression or numb. So either way, either stuck on high or stuck on low, we've lost our ability to adapt to challenges that are coming our way. And that's something that is really a physiological experience. We can rationalize all we want, we have no choice. The body is stuck on high or stuck on low. And there are techniques that really help the body to return to its ability to be resilient. And that's what we want to look for. So if we're stuck, the ability to be resilient can be seen like the ability to navigate the stressors that come our way. And they may be difficult, but we still are within our resiliency zone. If a stressor comes and it's too strong, then we're shut out of our resiliency zone and we end up here. And then that's what we call being stuck on high, or we end up there and we call that being stuck on low. And from that point on, we're not in our ability to be resilient. And that's really something to keep in mind, because these are nervous system challenges where the autonomic nervous system is just doing its thing, but we can't do anything about it. We're just hostage, basically, of a nervous system, and that's really something we want to help people work with. EMDR is a really interesting and powerful approach to work with traumatic experiences. What happens in trauma is that the memory is stuck in what we call implicit memories, which is a mixture of sensations and smells and sounds and vibration. But they're not necessarily the memories of I recall this moment and I was there. Their implicit memories are highly charged. And that's what leads people to be overwhelmed, because as soon as they hear a sound or they're reminded of something, their body takes over and they're being hostage of the intensity of the emotions or the sensation they feel. Implicit memories versus explicit memories. Implicit memories are the memories that we have of the sensation, the smells, the emotions we have, and they're not necessarily conscious. They're just like you hear a car backfire and you think your body reacts, or someone says a word and you don't know why but you get angry. Explicit memories are much more mental and left brain, as in I remember my birthday, what I did on my birthday, or I remember this event, but they're often not as emotionally charged. EMDR is an amazing approach to work with implicit memory to discharge the emotional charge that be there. Implicit memory, explicit memories, two different kind of memories. One is about the sounds, the vibration, the smells, the sensation, and they're often emotionally charged. And in periods of trauma or in childhood, implicit memories take over, and they often overwhelm the system. EMDR is an amazing approach to help us discharge the trauma that can be logged into the implicit memory system and really help us disengage with the emotional charge. And it works on the lateralization of the brain. We talked about the lateralization of the brain as in the right brain, the left brain. One of the things that's interesting with this is to realize that the left brain is very logical, analytical, linear, and it likes things this way. And it has for function to sort of push away all the limbic system or the brainstem information, which is much more what's the word I'm looking for? Forget it. The left brain, right brain. Left brain is very logical, analytical, linear. Right brain is really much more emotional and sensory experiences. EMDR allows us to move back and forth between both brains and give us new ways to look at and experience what may have been experienced as traumatic, because it transfers the information into a different section of the brain, and that's really what we're looking for. Okay. Psychotherapy. It allows people to get in touch with inner selves. We're all comfortable, many of us are comfortable with the idea that we have different parts of our personality, the part of us that is critical or judge other, or is perfectionist, or is romantic, or has religious or spiritual values, or likes to do things. So we can look at these different parts and talk to them directly, as in, so there's a part of you that's really critical of you. What if we went and talked to that part and honor it for its gift and its limitation, as in talk to it directly. And by doing this, we allow the person to have some distance, to really create some space of, this is my critic talking, and therefore creating a void to integrate other aspects that are not as disturbing, to be able to have some distance from the critical voice and some awareness of it, instead of just the critic acting out or doing its thing without any consciousness or any awareness of it. Okay, voice dialogue is an interesting approach in psychotherapy. It is an approach that allows us to talk to different sub-personality inside of us. Sub-personality is in the critic inside of us.
Oops.
That was a little sorry, I'll be right back. Ready?
Yeah, I just decided to check my phone.
Yes, exactly.
Now that I was thinking about it. Okay, rolling.
Voice dialogue is a brilliant approach in psychotherapy. It is an approach that literally allows us to give voice to the different sub-personalities, as in the critic, the judge, the perfectionist, the pleaser, the rebellion part of us, the romantic part of us. Whatever part we can identify, we can give voice to. And by doing that, the person gains some awareness of what that self is, or what the function of that self are, but also some space between he or himself and that's subpersonality.
Okay.
There's a lot of couples work. When couples come in therapy, it's often a challenging time for them because stress has accumulated, communication is always often, start again.
It's okay.
Couples therapy. When couples come to therapy, they're often in a heightened sense or experience of stress because communication is often broken down. Often the communication skills were pretty poor to start with, so that's one of the things we can focus on, helping people really hear their partners and really honor what the other person is saying and be aware that, as disturbing as what they're saying may be, when couples come to therapy, they're often in a heightened sense or experience of stress because communication is often broken down. Often communication skills are poor or were never given in childhood. So often couples will escalate because they start fighting and they're having a hard time to understand each other. So it's really important to help them listen and empathize with what the other person is saying and sort of learn to push away at times their own reactivity to really integrate what the other person is. Because at the end of the day, it's about linkage. It's about feeling that our partner understands us and finding compromise. And that's something that a good therapist can do. John Gottman, a specialist in couples therapist, talks about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, as in the 4 things to watch for in couples that will, the studies are showing that if couples are stuck on these 4 patterns, the chances of the relationship surviving and thriving is really jeopardized. What are the 4 horsemen? Withdrawal, the tendency to withdraw from conflict or withdraw from the partner. Stonewalling or defensiveness, the tendency to just defend and never hear the other person is really one of the 4 horsemen. Criticism is another big one, and the worst of all is contempt. When couples have contempt for each other, it's either time to really do the work of recapturing the intensity and the beauty of the relationship, what led to the relationship in the initial phase, or John Gottman is a specialist in couples therapy, couples work, and he's studied, not only believes in certain things, but I've done a lot of studies, and he talks about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, as in the 4 things that couples need to be mindful of in order to preserve the relationship. They are, first, withdrawal, the tendency to withdraw from conflicts or withdraw from the partner. Stonewalling or being defensive is another big one. Criticism goes without saying, and contempt. Contempt is one of the worst because if you lose respect for your partner, it's time to really recapture and work on the relationship. Otherwise, it goes towards divorce or separation. Obviously, acupuncture is the use of small Chinese medicine. Oh, let's start again. Acupuncture. Acupuncture is an old Chinese is part of the Chinese medicine, and we use small needles, and the points we use are points that will help move the energy in the body, and it's about regulating the energy system. It's like a little switch, basically. All the needles together will create a new way to move the energy in the body and help the body heal itself. So it's really a self-healing modality. The needles that we use in acupuncture will help the different places where we'll put the needles will create a new system and will move the qi in different areas. One of the things that's really important to understand about the body-mind connection is that stress releases stress hormones, as in adrenaline and cortisol, and these 2 hormones have a big impact on the brain. One of the impact is that it prevents us from thinking clearly. So when stress takes over, it's really difficult to be able to think clearly and act appropriately. And if it's too much, sometimes things will come out of people's mouth that they don't really mean, but at the same time it's said or it's done, and can be quite detrimental to relationships. So learning to manage one's stress is really an important skill that can be learned and really beneficial for relationships. The relationship between the brain and stress hormones like adrenaline or cortisol affects the brain, especially the prefrontal cortex, where the ability to think clearly is jeopardized. And against people's will, people will say things or do things that they surprise themselves having done because their body was literally hijacked with stress hormones and they could not think clearly and ended up creating damage in their relationships. So learning to manage stress, learning to be aware when stress builds so they don't end up being overly stressed out and then having to repair things that are often quite detrimental is a great skill to learn. So stress can hijack the brain, as in when stress hormones are released in the body, cortisol or adrenaline, the prefrontal cortex, which has the ability to think clearly, can be jeopardized. And people will say things, do things that can be quite detrimental for relationships. So learning to identify stress and learning to really see and feel in the body how much stress someone is going through. Learning to identify the level of stress.
Hold on. I'll start from there, but I'll start a different. Okay, start with learning.
Learning to identify the level of stress someone is experiencing is really important, because if you're experiencing a scale from 0 to 10, 0 flatlining, 10 really too much, and you just realize at 7 that you're stressed out, the possibility that you'll move to a 10 are much higher than if you identify at a 4 or a 3 or a 2. And ways to see how the body reacts to stress are really helpful, so people don't do stupid things and end up in patterns that keep recreating themselves. My name is Nathan Bergeron. I work under an acupuncture license and a psychotherapy license, so I'm well equipped to help people integrate body and mind and energy and psyche. My focus when I work with people is to help them identify what's going on in their body and their psyche. Okay?
It's okay. Take 2.
My focus when I work with people is to help them integrate their psyche with their body. As in, sometimes people will do a gesture, will express, you'll have a sense that the intensity or the emotions are really involved. And we'll slice it thin, we'll look at what is happening that their body is trying to express and really go into the depth of what the body is trying to communicate. And that can be quite helpful, because we get to really identify the genesis of the problem sometimes. And that can be quite helpful because it helps people get in touch with what's really going on underneath the surface, which needs to be addressed when you're in therapy. Otherwise, you're just fixing things on the surface, but the real issues are never addressed, and the traumas often are never healed. To slow down that gesture and really integrate what's going on inside their body as they're doing it. And it's really fascinating what comes up in these like slow motion moment where people will tap into the genesis of their pain or their trauma or their difficulties and really be able to process what's really going on. So the body is quite a helpful tool. Being attuned to the body is a helpful tool to move through difficult situations.
Okay.
Offering new skills to people is part of what therapy is about. Really integrating new skills in the sense of, if you've never learned to communicate clearly or communicate with I statements or identify what's going on inside your body as you relate to other people, just slowing things down and being present to every step that is required for the new skills to be implemented makes quite a difference in people's lives. We all come from a family of origin that had rules of things to do and not to do, things that, ways of being in the family that said, if you do this, we'll like you more, if you do that, we don't approve and we'll shame you or we'll ask you not to do it. And some of them are just normal ways of being in the world, but some of them are also ways that we could not allow ourselves to integrate. And therapy often allows us to reintegrate parts of ourselves that were not allowed, as in anger. Some people were raised in families where anger was just not allowed, so they had to stifle their anger all the time. And being able to integrate anger, not in a way of lashing out at everybody, but being able to be assertive when it's appropriate, or defend your life if you must, is really a skill that must be integrated if one wants to feel safe in the world. Choosing a therapist is a difficult thing to do. You go to someone you don't know and you're trying to establish a relationship, asking someone for advice or helping someone to help you out with difficult challenges. One of the things that I think is really important in finding a therapist is, do you feel safe with the person you're working with? Do you feel respected? Do you feel your secrets or your privacy is being honored? Because we all have challenges and it can be quite difficult to sometimes experience, to share. We all have challenges and it's really important to know that the person we're working with respects our challenges. We all have challenges.
Yeah, go back.
We all have challenges, and it's really important to know that the person we're working with respect our challenges and respect us in finding new ways to address them. What brings people to therapy sometimes is the experience of being pot-bound, in the sense that the realm of references they have is, no, I can't say it. There's 4 attachment styles. What we mean by attachment styles, the way we react and the way we engage with people. The attachment styles are secure, as in we're safe, we feel we can express who we are, we don't have to hold back. Avoidant, it often stems from parents being distant with the child, so the child has not learned to be seen and to interact with the parents, so it stays focused on other things, more material things. Anxious attachment is often caused by parents who are intrusive, so the child feels under the scrutiny of the parent and creates a level of anxiety. Am I going to please my parent or not? Are they be mad or not? And it creates often a way of relating to other people, especially in intimate relationship, in an anxious manner. Are they going to be there or not? If they say they're going to call, why are they not calling? And the anxiety kicks in. So being able to go into the genesis of the anxiety and discharge it is really helpful for healthy relationships. Disorganized attachment is the most disturbing one because there's 2 opposite reactions inside the body that are happening at the same time. If a child gets really scared by his parent, he will want to go to the parent to feel reassured, and at the same time the source of the fear comes from the parent. So the body is trapped in something that cannot be reconciled, because the parent being the source of trauma or the source of stress, the child often will collapse, and that creates often a sense of dissociation or a sense of forgot. In disorganized attachment, there's 2 opposite functions that are happening at the same time in the body. One is to in disorganized attachment.
I just kicked the camera. Okay.
In disorganized attachment, there's 2 opposite functions that are happening up at the same time. Disorganized attachment is due because the source of disorganized attachment is due because the parent that is the source of comfort is also the source of threat. So there's two opposite functions going on in the body at the same time. The child wants to go towards the parent because that's the source of comfort, and at the same time must run away from the parent because he's being threatened or she's being threatened. And that leads to dissociation or a sense of disempowerment that is so totally overwhelming that the child cannot do anything. He's just trapped. So the fact that the child cannot go towards the parent who is the source of threat leads to a sense of dissociation or fragmentation. That's what's really going on a biological level. It cannot be reconciled because the parent is the source of the threat and yet should be the source of comfort. People often ask, why do you use a point on my foot if I have problem with my stomach or my eye? For example, this channel, the stomach channel, starts underneath the eye, goes around the mouth, goes up to the head, so we can have stomach headaches or stomach channel headaches, goes down in the throat, sore throat, goes down in the chest, we can have congestion of the chest or difficulty breathing. We go into the area of the organ, internal organs, so definitely digestive issues, large intestine issues. We go down the leg and we finish on the second toe. So we could be treating a problem for the eye or a problem for the stomach or the throat using points of the toe, and that's how they're related. It's not magic, it's just that the points are where they are, and we use them sometimes very far away from the area that we're treating. It's pretty well known that acupuncture works both on the body and on the emotions or the mind. One of the ways we do this is the bladder channel. We have two lines here. We have the urinary bladder channel, which is one line here, and we have a second line there. So the first line the points on the first line will deal mostly with physical issues, lungs, liver, spleen, stomach. All the points of the different organs will be on that channel, on that line. And the emotional points will be on this line. So some people have heard like liver is related to anger, or spleen is related to thinking too much and obsession, or fear is related to the kidneys. So these points are used on the second line. It's one of the ways we'll deal with the emotional, the mental, or the psychic element of the energy. Sometimes people will ask us, why are you using points on my toes to treat problems in my head or around my eyes? For example, this is the stomach channel. It starts right underneath the eye, goes around the mouth, goes up to the head, so you can have headaches that are stomach related, then goes down to the throat. Sore throat can be treated with stomach channel, goes down to the chest, problem with palpitations or intense emotion, manic experiences can be treated with some of the points on the stomach channel, goes down to, obviously here, this long line around the organs, so digestive problems with the liver, the spleen, the large intestine, they'll all be addressed with these points here, down to the leg, down to the toe here. So that's how we can use a point at the very extremity of the channel to have an effect to the top of the head